USCHO.com. This is the USCHO Weekend Review podcast from U.S. College Hockey Online at USCHO.com. A look at this weekend in college hockey and a review of the top news of the week.
Welcome to the USCHO Weekend Review podcast for Monday, December 6, 2021. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly and Derek Schooley. Well, let's jump right in. Northern Michigan swept number one Minnesota Duluth, yet again a number one team that falls after they reach number one in the poll. But because they didn't have any experienced goaltenders, fifth-year senior Ben Pat played for the first time in his career, allowed 4 goals each night.
You know, anytime you're playing your third goalie and, you know, I think the expectation for everybody out there was that it was going to be a Rudy story. The kid gets his first start at fifth year, and then he's going to have a great run. Well, first shot goes in, and no fault of his own. I mean, he hasn't played a game in basically 4 years since he was at juniors at Notre Dame. So you can't fault him for that. And they did their best, and he played as well as he could. They gave him a chance to be in both games and win both games. But it's too big of a hurdle, especially when you've been sitting there that long, and the speed and the pace and the ability to scramble. And then you throw in fatigue of playing not just one, having to play back-to-back nights. I don't think you fault the goaltending at all. And I think even in those scenarios that we've talked about in the past, when you have a third goalie up like that, you buckle it up. You don't give up shots. You block everything and till they get comfortable. I mean, I remember you had a third goalie at RIT that happened to you, or a guy out of the club hockey happened at Canisius. So, you know, you can't fault him at all. And even I think Sandy said they didn't play very well in the second period, and I think that's on the team there.
Yeah, you know, and I think, Derek, Minnesota Duluth can write this one off, but Northern Michigan certainly isn't. And, you know, they've got to look at this as we just beat the number one on the team in the country twice, back-to-back nights, had our barn, you know, packed out, going crazy. And this is a huge momentum builder for them. They're now sitting at 10-6-1. They're a team that knows that they're probably even better than their record reflects. They've had some losses that they probably like back. And if you get into that situation, it's always good this time of year to have those types of wins because you know you're going on break soon. I think they have one more series against Lake Superior, but you're nearing that break. You want to go into breaks with momentum. And right now I look at Northern, they're building that momentum. And if they can get through this week, you know, maybe take 2 more wins this week would be the most ideal situation. You feel really good, you know, about to take 3-4 weeks off.
And, you know, and not to be lost is, you know, our thoughts are with, obviously, Ryan Fanti is in COVID protocol, but the other goalie, Stechel's dealing with testicular cancer, I believe it was announced. So my thoughts are with him. I dealt with this with one of our players a while ago, and that's hard. You know, it's hard on a team. So, you know, they're dealing with a lot. So I don't think I think Minnesota Duluth's got a lot of reasons to get a pass on this weekend.
There were a lot of splits in big series this past weekend. Every time Michigan has a home game at Yost, I think back to our conversation, Jim, a couple of weeks ago with Mel Pearson, as he talked about the distractions at home versus getting everybody together on the road, especially with a young team. Minnesota, which has been up and down, needed to have a good win, and they got one on Friday, winning 5-1. And then Michigan came back to win on Saturday, 5-3. It's going to be a struggle right down to the finish, it seems, in the Big Ten.
Distractions? Really? You're going to say 4,500 people screaming and yelling and band and everybody fighting and cheering and rooting for you is a distraction?
I think he's talking about having everybody in the hotel versus everybody being on campus.
I understand that. But you also have one of the best home environments in college hockey. And I wouldn't say that should be worth a goal every game. But I watched parts of both games and what different hockey games those were. And, you know, the first game, you know, Minnesota just was dominant. And I watched the third period because Noah West, our former goaltender, got his first action for Michigan. And he played very well in relief of Portillo. But then to see Michigan come out and I watched the first half of that game, and I was surprised that Minnesota battled back because it was a tale of two games. One team was outstanding both nights, and it was the team that won the game.
Ironically, all those yelling fans were the ones that were missing on Saturday, as most of the fans decided to stay home and watch the Big Ten football championship with Michigan winning that one over Iowa. But, I look at, I get it. I've heard coaches say that, the road is sometimes easier. And right now, Michigan's playing great away from home. But they're a good team. They should be able to translate that back into their own building. I would like to see that happen as this year goes on. I mean, the good news is that, you get into the Big Ten tournament. Well, that is still on home ice, but even if you get, they don't get the top seed, they end up on the road for a championship game. That could be a good thing. But the NCAA tournament, all that neutralized, I'm going to go to the other side though. Minnesota, boy, I'm still hit or miss on this team. I can't figure out where I want to put them in my head. Are they a top 3 team? Are they a top 10 team? Are they an inconsistent team? And when they are playing well, man, they are going. And that 5-1 win on Friday, they had the engines going. They had everything going right. So I'm very happy to see Minnesota put up some good results this weekend. They didn't play as well on Saturday, but that's expected. That bounce back from Michigan. They saw what Michigan can bring when they have everything going together. But these two teams, I look at these two teams still from day one. They've been the two that I see, battling it out right to the final day in the Big Ten. I think that's the way it's going to go.
So buy or sell in Minnesota.
Why don't we wait a little while on that one? We'll get to that in the second half of the show.
I want to jump in there, and I know we're going to transition it to it. Don't count out the next two teams that we're talking about, Notre Dame and Ohio State. Because mathematically, Ohio State, if they won their games in hand, would be the first place team in the Big Ten. So there's a lot of fanfare for Michigan and Minnesota, but just quietly chugging along, you got Ohio State that people were picking in the bottom of the Big Ten. And now here they are at the top of that potential winning percentage, the dreaded games in hand. If we win those two games, we will be in first place. The trap, but even if you get the split, they're still right in the mix. So don't count out those two teams as well.
Ohio State had a pair of games at Notre Dame over the weekend, with the Buckeyes winning 4-2 on Friday and Notre Dame coming back on Saturday with a 5-1 win. The poll voters love Notre Dame. They've consistently been in the top 10 over the last few weeks, with Ohio State kind of hanging in there near the bottom of the top 20.
Yeah, I'll go with Derek too. I think Ohio State probably is a little bit better. Obviously consistency's an issue. You put up a great win one night and then you give up a 5 spot the next night. I know it's Notre Dame and that's a good team. It's a top 10 team. And I think of Notre Dame as potentially being another team, Derek, that we have to throw into that Big Ten pot. But I still see come the end of the season, I still think there will be two at the top of the Big Ten. I know you can talk about games in hand, all of that stuff, but I still have seen two different teams in terms of what you get out of Minnesota and Michigan as opposed to the other 5 Big Ten teams.
I said my piece. I'm starting to be more and more convinced about the team in Columbus. So we'll see. If I'll go on buy or sell, I'd be buying on Ohio State right now, doing well in where they're at, and a lot unexpected. And sometimes you play better when there's no pressure or no expectations.
I don't think we can give Schooley the production notes before the show anymore because he tries to jump segments every single question in the entire show.
No,
we will get to buy or sell in our second half.
But they're not in buy or sell. So I was asking you, and neither was the other one that I just asked you about, Minnesota. They're not in your buy or sell. I was adding to the discussion. I was leading the listener that direction. So come on, get off my back here. I'm leading people in that way.
Careful, Ed. He's trying to take your job.
This season away from the rink, Derek is adding all kinds of skills to his skill set, building that stack of abilities there, and media, fundraising, women's hockey, all of those things. You're gaining tons of experience.
Oh yeah, and it's all great too. Let me tell you, I get to spend every week with you guys. I did an article on women's hockey that was fantastically written by Nicole last week, and no, my skill sets, they're galore. That's all I have to say.
Well, one other split last weekend was North Dakota at St. Cloud State. When we talked to Brett Larson a few weeks ago, Jim, he was talking about this gauntlet he had to go through and what they wanted to achieve. They fell short of that, but getting that big win on Friday, 8-1 over North Dakota, losing 5-3 on Saturday, getting the big win, though, that had to feel like it was straightening some things out for the Huskies.
It probably does. And listen, 8 goals, that's a lot to score on North Dakota. You're not going to see that often. And you're not going to beat North Dakota by 7 goals that often. But the tough thing, and this is what I always talk about these 2-game series, it's good to win on Friday night, but if you go, out and lose on Saturday, you still have a bad taste in your mouth. It's just the example of the Olympics or the World Championships, where the team that wins the bronze medal feels a lot better than the team that wins the silver medal. Because one team earned their medal with a win, one team got their medal for a loss. So, does it hurt St. Cloud that they lost a game? No, but does it feel good when you're going home in the week and you don't get to play for another few days? Yeah, you wanted that second win. This gauntlet that we talked about, he wanted to get, basically 2/3 of the points, fell short of that. Got more than half, 7 out of 12 points. No, did I do my math wrong? I guess I did. He wanted to get 12 out of 18. And by my math, St. Cloud only got 7. So 7 out of 18, didn't even get half the points out of that 6-game stretch. So there's still a lot of building, I think, for St. Cloud. They're a good team, but there's still a lot of building to be done.
Yeah, you got to go back to math class on that one, Jimmy.
They told me there'd be no math.
Yeah, well, I mean, next thing you know, Ed's going to pull out the engineering stuff. We're going to have to deal with all that stuff too. But what a goal by Yami Cornell. The Michigan from far away, a Sports Center highlight, and that was impressive. But 8-1, and then to turn around the next day and at home and lose a second one. I go back to it: sweep at home, split on the road, and that's one where I used to always think it, and I think I've told it on this show, is you like to, if you're going to split, you want to win the second game because you feel good about yourself all week, but I actually, as I got farther in my career, I felt that you want to win the first one because there's so much less pressure on the second game. And you've already got a split, but not at home. You got to get you want to get those points, and I'm sure that Brett was disappointed you would like to save a few of those 8 goals for the next day and maybe win 5-1 and then pull those 3 over, but unfortunately, you can't do that.
Well, let's turn to Quinnipiac. They're number 2 in today's USCHO.com Division I men's ice hockey poll. They got about 1/3 of the first place votes. Shut out RPI and Union 2-0 and 4-0 respectively on the weekend. They've outscored their opponents in ECAC hockey 20-2. The only blemish on the record is a loss to North Dakota when they split with the Fighting Hawks. I think you guys probably would agree that Quinnipiac is still maybe being underrated by the voters, and they've got a terrific 1-2 punch and goal on top of everything else they've got going.
If I had a vote, which you guys took that away from me when I went on the committee, if I had a vote, I would have said that my vote would have went to Quinnipiac. Just very impressive. A 2-0 win and a 4-0 win. What do you say, Jimmy? What's it, 20-2? In ECAC play that Quinnipiac is going that direction. So if I had a vote, that's where I am. I'm high on the Bobcats right now.
There's going to be some tight games, I'm sure, for Quinnipiac in league play. But if they ran the table and won all 22 ECAC games this year, I wouldn't be shocked. And this team is really good. And I think they had the big question was, what do they have in net you had Dylan St. Cyr coming in, but then he ended up starting the season injured, and Yanni Ferretz comes in and he has been phenomenal. Lowest goals against in the country, best save percentage, or one of the best save percentages in the country. I mean, it's almost an embarrassment of riches because this team can do everything else well. They defend well, they score well, their special teams are excellent. I look at, this Quinnipiac team as one of the best that Rand Pecknold has ever had. And that's a coach that twice has reached a national title game.
Well, while we're talking about hot goaltenders, a very undermanned and depleted lineup for Northeastern swept Providence last weekend, in no small part to just stellar play from Devin Levi in net. We didn't get to see him play college hockey last year. Head coach Jerry Keefe's got to be thrilled.
Oh, certainly. You have to go down to Providence on Friday night. They're missing basically 4 of their top 6 forwards. And you hold Providence off the board. I think I can't remember the number. I want to say it was 31 saves that Levi had that night. And you find a way to score 1 goal, and then you get an empty netter. It's a 2-0 game. Then you come back to your own barn. Now you get some of that home cooking that Derek was talking about. You get your fans in back of you. You're feeling better about yourself. You don't have the pressure of having lost Friday night, and you go out and you put another win up. And right now, Northeastern, boy, they're a hot team. I like this team a ton. And when you can ride a goaltender, Derek, you know it. When you're a coach and you know that you don't have to worry about your goaltender letting in more than 2 goals a night. He hasn't allowed more than 2 goals in his last 12 starts. When you can ride that guy, boy, that's a nice feeling.
And just the confidence it gives your group to know that if you get 3, you're going to win that hockey game. And I think you're seeing that with a lot of hot teams running around the nation right now. And obviously back-to-back shutouts for Quinnipiac, and then what Levi's doing. I mean, you're talking some performances, and this might be maybe also one of the first weeks we haven't talked about Dryden McKay either. So we're in that point right now where there's a lot of very good goaltenders out there, and we're going to get to some more as the show goes on. But hey, if you know that you're only going to give up 2 goals a game, and you have to give up 3, the goalie gives up 3, that's where the team rallies on the bench and goes, hey, he's done it for us. Now it's our time to do it for him. And what a good culture builder that is. And fight through adversity to all those kind of things. Another team really hot going into the semester break is Bentley. They swept Mercyhurst last weekend. They've won 5 in a row. We've talked about how Ryan Soderquist has done a good job in bringing in some transfers to kind of beef up his program. They are on top of Atlantic hockey standings as they head into 2022. Well, I think that's, we talk about goaltending, and Evan DeBrouwer's provided them something. And that's not to say that Nicholas Grabko and Jason Grand aren't good goalies, because Nicholas Grabko was really good last year, but DeBrouwer comes in, he's 5-1 right now. His goals against is 171, and his save percentage is 946. And that's, once again, there you go. You don't give up a lot of goals, and you get a lot of confidence. But Ryan was very excited about this group and his team, and didn't really know what to expect. And I think Frank Serratori said it at the beginning of the year. I don't know how to pick these teams because they're all new players. And Bentley went out and retooled a little bit. They felt they needed to do some things to get deeper, not as top heavy. And they did that. And, you look at, their top 2 scorers are still guys that were there last year, and Drew Bavaro and Matt Koziski. But no, Evan DeBrouwer's done a great job for them. And Ryan was right. Ryan knew what he needed to do, and he went out and got it through the transfer portal.
I said it way back when Bentley beat Ohio State, then they beat Boston College. And I said, this team will prove something to me if they can go into their league and do this as well, because I feel like Bentley's been a team that's been excellent at getting up for the big opponents, but sometimes within their league, they can't get up for every game. And right now, this stretch they're on 5 straight wins, they're starting to show something. And I think that, Ryan Soderquist has been building this for a while. And he lost some guys in the transfer portal, but he went out and used the portal to go get some guys. And I think, we've talked about it before. It probably didn't feel like a fair trade in terms of what he got, but when you've got a guy like DeBrouwer who's now in net and really, being the backbone of your team, maybe you did win that battle of the transfer portal. So I think that Bentley has to be really happy. They head into the break now. You won't play again till January when they'll have 2 tough games against UMass Lowell, but that'll be another good test for them. And if they come out of these tests, they're going to actually start to watch themselves move up the pairwise. This is a team that I feel could be the best team in Atlantic hockey.
The test for Bentley is going to be when the team gets to the playoffs. And you can't carry stuff from several years ago forward to a new crop of players. But that's the place where Bentley, even in years where they've been at the top of Atlantic hockey, they've fallen just a bit short in the playoffs. And they need to get over that hump to move. They got to get to the Final Four in Atlantic hockey. I think they've got the talent to do that, but that's the next hurdle for them.
Well, I think that you say that. They've got the talent to do it. They've had the talent. They've been high seeds a lot. I mean, we seem to play them every year for like 3 straight years in the playoffs. We actually went out there and beat them in a 3-game series. And when they were a lot there, I think they were a 2 or 3 seed and we were a 7 or 8 or no, 6 or 7. And, but you're right. I think for all the accolades they've got, and Ryan's done a very good job there. It's time that they got to get to the Final Four. It's been over 10. I don't think they've been in the Final Four since we were in Atlantic hockey, which has been almost 12 years.
Yeah, I mean, I know they were runners up in 2006 to Holy Cross. It may be that long, but I would have to look it up. But I think you're right. It has probably been since before Robert Morris joined the league. Well, something that was very popular with listeners the first time we did it was buy or sell. We're going to take a look at that next.
I've already done it.
Yeah, we're going to do even more. We're going to do even more. Yeah, you did start it. We're going to change it to the weekly buy or sell podcast. And we'll have the full buy or sell or the rest of the buy or sell coming up in a moment here on the USCHO Weekend Review Podcast.
This is the USCHO Weekend Review Podcast from US College Hockey Online.
This is the Weekend Review Podcast from USCHO.com. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly and Derek Schooley. And now again, as we've done before and as we've done already in this podcast, we're going to play buy or sell on the following questions, not just on the teams, but on the questions, the premises behind the question. North Dakota, we'll start out with that. Jim, North Dakota, despite going 3-3-0 in their last 6, they're still one of the top 3 teams in the country. Buy or sell?
I'm going to sell. I think they're close, but they're not top 3. I think that this is a team. Could they reach a Frozen Four? Sure. Single elimination. You never know. I don't like their inconsistency right now. I've got to sell right now. They're a top 10 team. Don't get me wrong. But as we ask this question, are they a top 3 team in the country? No.
I'm going to go with you, Jim. Sell. I think they're a 2 seed at best right now. Maybe even you say top 10, maybe even a 3 seed because of their inconsistencies. So I'm going to say sell, but it's like the stock market. I could sell right now, but buy it real quick again.
I agree with both of you. I think a more pertinent question might have been, are they one of the top 3 teams in the NCHC right now? And I think maybe they might be the 3rd best team and maybe the 4th. So if you're 3rd or 4th there, I know people will say, well, if you're the top 3 team in the NCHC, then of course you're top 3 in the country. But I think they're sort of, they're on the edge of maybe not having home ice in the playoffs. It's going to be that tight in that league. So I would be a sell on that one also. The next one, Cornell. Is Cornell one of the top 5 teams in the country? Buy or sell on that one?
I'm buying. I had them 5 on my ballot this week. I think that this is a team, having watched them play Boston University down at MSG, they've got a lot of horses and they play good defense. This is still a Mike Schaefer team. They're defense first. They do a lot of things right. I like this Cornell team that, when will they get respect from the voters? Who cares? I know Mike Schaefer doesn't, and I think if they ever showed that they have some Achilles heels, it was closing out the game on Saturday night against Clarkson, a 4-0 lead that they blew. But those are the character games. You learn from those games. I'm fine with this team. They'll be a top 5 team at the end of the season.
Shafe will kill me. I played for him. I worked for him. I'm selling right now. I'm going off numbers, straight numbers. They're at top 5. They're 18 in the pairwise, which means their schedule's been fairly easy. And I don't like, and just like Mike said, he took the blame for it like a good coach would. He blamed that on himself because they hadn't worked on 6-on-5. But you can't blame that on yourself. I mean, he is to the public, but he's going in there going, we got to find a way to, I mean, what was it? 5 minutes left, 4 goals in the last 5 minutes, one with under a second left. I mean, you're talking on the road against Clarkson where you're actually, doing pretty well going into the third, or you're up 2-0, you get a 4-0 lead. I mean, you got to hold that lead. I mean, it's 5-13. No, my math's wrong now too. Western Michigan Education. We'll talk about them. 5-16 was left, and you got to be able to protect a 4-goal lead.
Yeah, I'm going to sell on that one also. And I got a question for you, Derek, and it's a 2-part question. First, how much time do you spend working on 6-on-5? And second, should you spend more time on it knowing that overtime is worth so much less if you win in overtime?
We spend, you know what, when you always spend working on 6-on-5, because it's not a priority at the beginning, is you spend it when you have an off week early. So you'll do both. You work 6-on-5, maybe one day that you would work on power play when you're not playing. 6-on-5 for and 6-on-5 against, but it's stuff that you go over. So you don't spend a lot of time early, but Mike had, I mean, they start later, and I don't know if they've had any off weeks. So maybe they haven't worked on it very much. So it's, you do have put it into practice. So that's for sure.
Let's go to Boston University. The premise on this one, BU currently 6-9-2. Still an NCAA tournament team, buy or sell?
It's a big stretch, but I'm going to buy on this. They're getting healthy. They look better. Every game that they seem to play, they look a little bit better because they get players back. And now they will, really test that this weekend against a Boston College team. Their rival. This is the big series for them when you really look at everything that's on a schedule. Jack Parker used to say you could play this game in a Tuesday afternoon in an outdoor rink with no fans, and there would still be the same level of intensity. And I agree, this is the big test for them. And I believe it's the end. This is their break after Friday's game, but they started slow because they were really banged up, and their entire first line was basically missing. So they'll start moving up. I think now that they're healthy, as long as they stay healthy, that's one of the big keys as well.
I'm a numbers guy this week. I'm selling. 35 is a big jump unless you're going to get the auto bid. If you're talking about getting a at-large bid, I don't think that. I mean, I'm not a mathematician. I mean, we'd have to get Tim Dennehy on here, but you're going to have to make up a lot of points going from 6-9-2 when you've already played half your schedule. So I'm going to sell on that one.
Yeah, I'm going to sell too. I think it's a very big hole they've dug. But I got to ask you, Jim, you see Hockey East a lot. How much of this is a little bit of a carryover from not getting to play a whole lot last season?
A little bit, but there's a lot of new faces in this roster. So I don't know that it's a ton. I think that they're starting to get good goaltending. Of course, their top goalie's headed off to World Juniors now. So I haven't actually had a chance to really look at their schedule to see how many games that'll impact. But it's consistency for them. But I still think that this team, I've seen almost every team in Hockey East play this season, and BU is by far the fastest team I've seen play. They can skate better than everybody. They've just got to execute and be consistent. There's no reason why this team, and I know, Derek, you say 35 is too far. That's not even close, because I've seen teams go from that low in the pairwise up to a number 1 seed in the second half by running the table. But, I think that this team certainly can get there. It's just getting consistent.
I'm glad we determine wins and losses with a stopwatch now, because they're the fastest team.
Let's turn to Minnesota State. Minnesota State, buy or sell that Minnesota State is the best team in the CCHA.
I'll buy. A goaltender like that, you're still buying. The fact that I think they're probably going to be number one in the poll again. They're more Quinnipiac this week, playing well. There's no reason not to. Listen, is Northern doing some good things? A sweep this weekend certainly put them back on their radar. Are there other teams that are good in that league? And we know, certainly, but Minnesota State's good. It's still Minnesota State. This is a team that was in a Frozen Four last year. They lost so little. Yeah, they're fine. We'll say that they're going to be the best team in the CCHA.
I agree. I'm buying. Jim, we haven't agreed very much this week. It's been
that's more your fault.
No, because you're right all the time. Yep, I got it. But as he spits his water out, I don't see how. I mean, they're just so deep in everything they do, and with their schedule, they still have St. Thomas twice. They still have Ferris that's at the bottom. They do have a couple big games against Bemidji still looming large, and that'll be this weekend. So don't count Bemidji out just yet. Don't count out Northern because they do play them one more time. But I'm full in on buying that one.
Yeah, definitely buy on that one. And Bemidji really is the only team kind of nipping at their heels right now. Unless something totally falls apart, that's one I would buy too. The next one's a fun one, and it involves a little bit of math, I guess. Western Michigan comes into today's podcast at number one in the pairwise, and we've expressed our feelings about the early pairwise, and it's getting less early, but still a little early. Buy or sell, Western Michigan will finish top four in the pairwise.
Sell. A couple of losses will bring them right down. And I think they're a good team. I think that they're, even top four in the NCHC, they're going to be right around four. You're right. It's math. And I know Schools is, entirely riding things out on the pairwise, even though he was one that said he doesn't like the pairwise in December. He's using it for every stat he's giving today. But they're there right now. But, don't forget what the second half of the NCHC is. It's a battle of attrition, and it's basically Mortal Kombat where you have teams killing each other. They have a couple of losses in the second half. And, this is a good Western team, but I think that the inexperience, not of the team in general, but of being in big game situations, will show itself in the second half, and they'll slip. But yeah, I still think they're an NCAA tournament team, but I don't see them being a number one seed once we get to mid-March.
So I'm not going to go. I'm going to go against my stats this week, and I'm going to say sell. You're looking at a team that's got, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 remaining games against teams in the top 12. That's a hard schedule. Now, if you were asking me, will they have the number one strength of schedule in the nation? Maybe, because their other games are at the Great Lakes. They don't have anything left outside of Michigan State, outside of non-league that you can go. That's one that they're going to really have a good time at. Michigan, they beat them early. They play Michigan again. Michigan will not forget that. And so I'm going to say, while Pat Ferschweiler has done a great job in his first year, this might be the best Western team. Could it be a number 2 seed? Yes. But I'm not sold on a top 4 yet.
I'm going to sell also, and I'm going to go out on a limb saying that there's only going to be one NCHC team in the top 4, and it's going to be Denver. I'll probably be proven wrong, but right now that's kind of what my gut is telling me. I think the Pioneers are terrific.
Kind of like when Jimmy said Michigan was going to go undefeated.
On the road, I said, on the road.
Well, we got just a couple more here, buy and sell. Quinnipiac, and both you guys talked about voting them number one, if you could, Derek, and you did, Jim. They're riding an 11-game unbeaten streak, and Buy or sell, Quinnipiac is the best team in the country.
Yeah, I mean, buy, kind of giving this one away earlier when we started talking about them, and they were number one on my ballot right now. One loss on their entire schedule, and it was to North Dakota. They beat North Dakota as well. So this is a good team. And, once they straightened out goaltending, and it didn't even take them a day to do it, they had the rest. As long as they can, continue to play and show up every night. And I don't remember a lot of Rand Pecknold teams that take nights off. But, as long as they continue to play every night, this could be one of the best overall records that any Quinnipiac team has ever had. And, going back to their early days in the MAC, they had some really low number of loss totals. I think they had maybe a 3 or 4 loss season at one point in there. This is a good team. I've got to buy on them. And until they prove me wrong, they're my number one team on my ballot every week.
I am buying that they're the best team right now. Without a doubt. They are playing the best hockey. They've been the most consistent. Are they going to be the best team at the end of the year? I'm concerned about the schedule that they have. I don't know if it's going to prepare them as well as they need to be prepared for NCAA tournament hockey. That's not a shot at them. You can only play this, Jimmy's quote, you can only play the schedule that you're given. I don't know if that's going to prepare them to play some of the like the other teams are being prepared right now to play at the end of the day. Right now, yes, 100% best team in the nation. Will they be at the end? We'll see if their schedule, if Cornell can start pushing them, Clarkson can start pushing them. We'll see. It makes sense?
Yeah, I'll give you a compliment. Derek. That's a really good take.
Thank you. We're there on something. We got along today.
I think I would buy right now. The thing that I'm impressed with Quinnipiac is they're just putting a lot of shots on net, almost 36 a game right now. And again, maybe against some lesser competition, but when you're doubling up the shots on your opponents, you're getting a lot of offense in. And with 2 stingy netminders, they're in a good position right now. The last one, and this is one I've been watching this closely, and we mentioned Evan DeBrouwer earlier, and I'll bet they would still love to have him at Arizona State. The Sun Devils are 7-9 right now. Buy or sell that Arizona State can make the NCAA tournament field.
Well, maybe I didn't write the question right, because anybody can, they technically can still make it. You run the table in the second half. You don't even have to do that. You basically have to win 70% of your remaining games and you'll get in.
Can they do that?
But will they do that?
Can they do
no, it? I don't think they can. I've got to sell on this. And I'm a big Greg Powers fan, but doesn't seem to have all of the components this year, and goaltending does seem to be maybe their weakness right now. I think that if this team, puts together a run, that's wonderful. And they've got to do it earlier, because if I've looked at their schedule correctly, some of their games on the second half of the year aren't going to help their RPI. So, they've got to look at what they have left on their schedule. They've got Clarkson at some point here, this weekend coming up. They've got Cornell right back when they start January 1 and 2. They get BU, they get RIT that can probably actually be a bumper in the RPI, and then Minnesota State. But they close their season. Their final 6 games are 4 against Alaska and 2 against LIU. So if you're not already in position, you haven't won, probably 60% of or 70% of those games coming into that final 6 stretch, you're not going to use those last 6 games to pump up your RPI enough to get into the tournament.
And they got Clarkson this week. I'm going to sell. We talked a couple weeks ago. They had Bemidji, Denver, Clarkson at home, and then go to Colorado College, and that we were looking at them potentially at a 6-2 to put themselves right back in it. They're 1-3 right now, and they were all at home. So those are killers. I'm going to take it one step further. You say goaltending, 6 out of 29 on one game and 7 out of 41. And they got one goal. He's got a 9.03 and one's an 8.84, and both are over 3.5 goals against. And you've got one of the best power plays in the nation, and you've got 3 guys that have point per game. So you've got a potent offense. You got a pretty good offense. They're just having problems keeping pucks out of the net.
Well, Jim, I'm going to use some math here, and I'm going to say sell, and I'm going to do it based on your analysis in last week's TMQ column, where you said that Arizona State really needs to get 22 wins. That's your benchmark for them to be able to get into the NCAA tournament. It's 7-9 right now. They have to go 15-3 the rest of the way out to get there. That means no more than 3 losses against some pretty tough competition, including Clarkson, BU, and Cornell. I don't see them being able to do that. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but boy, do they have to just about virtually run the table to do it.
And you've got Clarkson and Cornell at home. You'll find out before January 2nd. But like you said, BU, RIT, then you got a home game against Lindenwood that don't count, and then you got to go to Mankato. So you've got 6 hard places to go. I think you just answered your own question. I answered it for you, Ed, but you had answered it already.
Well, that's going to wrap up Buy or Sell, and that's going to wrap up this edition of USCHO Weekend Review. For Derek Schooley, for Jim Connelly, I'm Ed Trefzger, and we'll catch you next time.
This has been the USCHO Weekend Review Podcast, a production of US College Hockey Online. Visit uscho.com/podcasts to listen or subscribe.